Hi everyone, for our 5th grade Elevate group today, we will be comparing whole numbers. Now, this is a very easy lesson. Students should not struggle through it. The only thing that might be a little bit challenging or different is that students are not solely focused on the arithmetic today. They are looking at models to anchor them in their comparison. So, what I would like for you to do is to model for students or take 2 minutes introducing and explain the different models they will be using today or the different parts of the model that they will be using today. Explaining what the hundreds blocks look like, the tens, and the ones, and how we can use them to compare. So, what I see is that in both of these models, they have the same number of hundreds. I see they have the same number of tens. They both have 2 tens. I see that they have a different set of ones. So the ones place is where my comparison lies. In our first model, we have 8 ones, whereas in our second model, we have 5 ones. Because we know, now listen to this, because this is the language that I want you to use. Because we know that 8 ones is greater than 5 ones, then that means 128 is greater than 125. Now, in this second question, we have 2 numbers. We have 2 models again. The first model shows 100 block, whereas the second model shows 10 tens. What we know is that 10 tens is equivalent to 100 as well. So because this first model is equivalent to 100 and this second model is equivalent to 100, then these 2 values are actually equal to one another. So you'll spend 2 minutes going over the models, and then you are going to model for students how they will compare. So they don't give you the value for question A. It just tells you to compare the numbers shown by the models. That is why it was important for you to introduce the models at the beginning of the lesson. So here we have our hundreds in both models, the same amount of hundreds. They both have 2 hundreds. Now, let's look at our tens. In the first model, we have 1 10. But in the second model, we have 2 tens. That is the first place value in which we see a difference. Because we know that 1 10 is less than 2 tens, then that means that this first model is less than the second model. Now, they did give us the first number, but they didn't give us the second number. So we would have to determine, well, what is the second model equivalent to? We know that we have 2 hundreds. We know we have 2 tens. And we know we have 1 1. So the answer is 221. 213 is less than 221 because 110 is less than 2 tens. Then you will launch into another 2-minute model that is not focused on specific blocks. However, it's focused on utilizing the place value chart. So this is already modeled for you, putting the digits are already in the place value chart. However, for today's lesson, students will have to physically write the number in the place value chart in order to compare. So we will always compare starting with the greatest place value. In this case, it's the thousands place. Always start on the left-hand side when you are comparing numbers. So in the thousands place, we see that both numbers have 2000s. In the hundreds place, we see that both numbers have 700s. That doesn't help us compare. In the tens place, they both have fives. It doesn't help us compare either. However, in the ones place, there is a difference. Because we see that 6 ones is greater than 4 ones, then we know that 2,756 is greater than 2,754. So from there, you will launch students into 10 minutes of practice where they are using the models as well as the place value chart. They're working at a volume level 1 with their partners. When it comes down to this page in the place value chart, students may struggle with identifying 0 as a placeholder. What you might find as a misconception is that a lot of students will want to always start with the first digit in the first box. However, that is not always accurate. So if a student were to write 390 like this, then actually what they're saying is that that number is 3,900. They cannot change the value of the number. And so starting here is actually incorrect. What you can ask students is, how do you say this number? Or here's where our work from the previous days become helpful. What is the value of that 3? Then students should be able to identify, oh, it's a 300, so that means that the 3 should be in the hundreds place. The value of the 9 is a 90, so the 9 should be in the tens place, so on and so forth. For them to be able to identify where 0 can be put as a placeholder. Then from there, you'll give students the 5 minutes of their exit ticket. We are giving out points for the correct symbol for comparison.